Okay, so let's get into this. You've done all the hard work. You're way past the beginner stuff. You can watch movies in English. You can listen to a conversation like this one. You can follow along pretty well. You've hit that B2 level, that intermediate spot. And honestly, that's a huge deal. You should be really proud of that.
Oh, it absolutely is. But I think if you're listening to this, you probably know what comes next, that frustration.
Right.
You start to realize that what you're doing every day, watching shows, listening to music, it's just not giving you those big jumps in skill anymore. You've hit what everyone calls the intermediate plateau.
The infamous plateau.
Exactly. You get the language, but using it naturally. Especially when things get a bit more complex or formal, it feels like you've just hit this invisible wall. Making that jump to C1, to advanced, it can feel impossible.
Totally. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We've gone through a ton of material, including some great insights from learning communities, from content like daily English practice, where people are just desperate for that next step.
Yeah, they want a roadmap.
They want the roadmap. They want to turn all that passive knowledge into real active mastery. So today, we're going to lay out the strategies that experts recommend for actually breaking through that B2 wall.
And we're going way beyond just watch more TV.
Way beyond. We're talking about like cognitive shifts, how to really master vocabulary, and how to finally fix those little mistakes that just seem to stick around forever.
Well, I think the first thing to understand is why progress stalls in the first place. A lot of what we looked at points to this one thing. Learners lean really heavily on input, watching and reading.
Right. Comprehensible input.
Exactly. But once you can already understand most of what you're consuming, that input alone just stops moving the needle. It's like one person said on a forum, the progress just stops feeling marked and noticeable, even if they're using English every single day.
Which brings us to what I think is the core problem here. This huge gap between what you can understand and what you can actually say.
The receptive versus productive gap. That's it right there.
Explain that a little more.
Well, receptive competence is what you can take in reading, listening. Productive is what you can create speaking and writing. So, I might be able to read and really appreciate a classic novel,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean I can just sit down and write one myself. Not even close.
And some theories used to suggest that if you just listen enough, the speaking part would kind of magically appear.
Yeah, that was the idea.
But for so many people, that just doesn't happen. The gap stays,
Yep.
and it makes you anxious, right? You hear a really complex sentence, you understand it perfectly, but when it's your turn to speak.
You go right back to the simple stuff, the easy, safe sentences you've said 1,000 times. And this is the trade-off that intermediate speakers are always making. They choose fluency, but they sacrifice complexity to get it.
They want to keep the conversation flowing.
Of course. So they stick to basic grammar and words they know really well. But to get to C1, your language has to complexify.
Complexify. Okay, that sounds a little academic. What does that actually look like in practice? Like if I'm talking about my job?
It means you have to consciously restructure how you think about grammar. You have to move beyond simple sentences like, I worked hard and I got a raise. That's B2.
Okay.
A C1 speaker might use more complex structures. They might say something like, my getting a raise was a direct consequence of the effort I'd put in. It's a huge difference in sophistication.
Right. But how do you force your brain to do that when it just wants to grab the easy version?
The strategy is something called pushed output. Basically, you give yourself tasks that really force you, to use these more difficult forms. If you just chat, you'll stay in your comfort zone.
So give me an example. What's a pushed output task I could do today?
Okay. Find a challenging article, maybe an editorial about tech or the economy. Your task is to summarize it, either speaking or writing, but here's the rule. You have to use at least 5 specific connecting words, like although, whereas, Jud provided that.
I see. So it's not just about getting the idea across anymore.
Exactly. It immediately becomes about structure and accuracy, which is tough. And that's where you run into the second big hurdle for advanced learners. Fossilization.
Fossilization. This is the absolute worst.
It's the nemesis. Yeah, these are those mistakes that just will not go away. Maybe it's forgetting the S on third-person verbs or always mixing up prepositions like on and at.
You can be totally fluent, but these little errors are just baked in.
And you know why they stick around? It's because they usually don't stop people from understanding you. If you say, my boss always give me feedback, I know what you mean.
Right, so I don't correct you because it's not a big deal.
And because no one corrects you, you never even notice you're making the mistake. It's this idea called the noticing hypothesis. If you don't notice an error, you literally can't fix it. Your brain's learning switches off.
So you have to become your own editor. You have to actively monitor yourself.
You do.
But wait, hold on. Recording myself and listening back, that sounds so tedious. I mean,
Yeah.
for someone with a busy job, how realistic is that? What's the, minimum effective dose for this?
That's the key question. It can't be some hour-long chore every day.
Yeah.
You just need maybe 10 minutes of focused work 3 times a week. Here's how you do it. First, record yourself talking for just 2 minutes. Just talk.
Okay.
Then, and this is the important part, transcribe only the first 30 seconds. Just write it out. When you see "he never asked" written on the page, it's usually this little shock to the system that forces you to notice.
It's different seeing it versus just saying it.
Totally. And then, if you have a tutor, tell them you want to track maybe 2 or 3 of your most common mistakes. Just those. And that's it. You're turning a chat into a very targeted practice session.
I like that. Okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's talk about vocabulary.
Right.
Because the jump required to get to C1 it's just massive.
The scale is honestly staggering. Most intermediate learners kind of top out around 3,000 words. But some of the research shows that to read a regular novel for fun, you need closer to 5,000. And for, say, university-level material,
Oh, I bet it's even more.
you might need 8 or even 10,000 words.
10,000. That's not a word list. That's a whole different language.
It is, and it's not just about learning more words in your field. It's about breadth. You have to start consuming media on topics you know nothing about. Pet grooming, aeronautics, ancient history.
Things that are completely outside your comfort zone.
Exactly. That's how you build your vocabulary beyond just the familiar stuff. And that leads to the real secret weapon of advanced speakers, which is collocational competence.
Okay, what is that?
It's knowing which words go together naturally. It's the difference between sounding correct and sounding natural.
Right, like you say, heavy rain, not strong rain.
Precisely. Or an intermediate learner might know the word effort and always say, make an effort. But a C1 speaker knows you can also exert an effort or put forth an effort. That subtle choice of verb is what signals mastery.
So it's about those word partnerships. You don't do a decision, you make a decision.
You render a decision even. And the way you learn these is by absorbing thousands of them until they become automatic. You're not building sentences one word at a time.
No, you're pulling out these pre-made chunks.
Yes. You're retrieving these fixed phrases. When you're tired or you're under pressure, you fall back on them. Things like, do you know what I mean? Or at the end of the day.
Yeah, if you see what I mean, they're like little conversational building blocks. They buy your brain time to think.
And you also need discourse markers. Words like however, or moreover, or consequently. They're like signposts in your speech. They structure your argument and show a really high level of control.
Okay, so we've covered fixing errors and building vocabulary. Now let's get into the really deep stuff. Rewiring your brain to actually think in English.
This is where consistency is everything. It's not about long study sessions. It's about finding those little 10 or 15-minute gaps in your day while you're cooking, while you're on a walk.
Brushing your teeth.
Yeah, brushing your teeth. That steady daily input is what builds the new pathways in your brain.
And for listening, the whole game changes at this level.
Yeah.
B2 listening is about understanding the gist. C1 listening is analytical.
Totally. You have to balance that passive listening, like having a podcast on in the background, which is great for rhythm, with really focused active listening.
What does active listening look like?
It means full attention. You're trying to catch keywords, maybe take a few notes, and right after you finish, you try to summarize what you just heard out loud. That forces you to produce complex language immediately.
And you have to face the scariest part of listening, which is connected speech. The way native speakers just smush all their words together.
Right. What are you going to do becomes what you're going to do.
And the key is not to panic when you hear that.
No, you just have to train your ears for it. And this is where a technique called shadowing is so powerful.
I love shadowing. It's a bit weird at first, but it works.
It works so well because you're training your ears and your mouth at the exact same time. You're trying to speak along with the recording, matching the rhythm, the intonation, everything.
It forces you to feel the flow of the language instead of just analyzing it.
And all of this is building toward the ultimate goal, stopping that translation loop in your head.
The end game.
That's the end game. You have to train your brain to just operate in English. And you can start small. Change your phone to English. Change your social media.
Use an English-only dictionary.
Yes, that is such a powerful one. When you look up a new word, you define it using simple English you already know. You're forcing your brain to stay in English mode.
And you can start an internal monologue.
Just start by naming things around you. Computer, lamp. But as you do it, really focus on the pronunciation. Pay attention to the little sounds.
And then you start narrating your life. But you push for that C1 complexity we were talking about.
Exactly. So instead of, I'm making coffee, which is B2,
You'd say something like,
you'd say, now that I've ground the bones, the next step is to ensure the water reaches the optimal temperature for brewing. You're practicing complex structures in a low-stakes environment.
and the final tip for this is one you can do every night.
Just before you go to sleep, recap your day in English, in your head. It's the last thing your brain processes, and it's an incredible way to reinforce vocabulary and might even get you dreaming in English.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this all up. To get from B2 to C1, you have to be intentional. First, you have to expand your vocabulary way outside your comfort zone.
Very topics.
Second, you have to focus on complexity over just being fluent and comfortable. Use things like self-recording to hunt down those fossilized errors.
And third, you have to make those cognitive shifts. Start thinking, narrating your life in English, and force your brain to stop translating.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, and it brings up a really important question that I think holds people back. At this level, improvement is so slow, so subtle. How do you even know if you're making progress?
That's a great point. You don't get that aha moment like you do at the beginning.
You don't. So here's a final thought, a little trick. Find something, a podcast, a video that was really difficult for you a month ago. Go back and listen to it again.
I like that.
When you realize how much easier it is to understand now, that's your proof. That's the hard evidence that all this slow, incremental work is actually paying off. It's happening.
And seeing that progress is the fuel you need to keep going. Consistency really is everything. So if you're looking for great material for daily practice, you should definitely check out some of the resources we talked about, like the content from the English Pod community and similar channels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commit to these strategies, start small, and just stay with it. We know you can make that jump.